Upbeat, rhythmic music starts and then fades slightly into the background. 800, 588, 2300, Empire. You know it. I know it. Your grandma knows it. That jingle isn't just a piece of music. It's a permanent resident in the collective consciousness of America. For over 40 years it has burrowed its way into our brains. An uninvited guest at 3 in the morning. A ghost that haunts the aisles of every home improvement store. But what if I told you that this goofy, low-budget sounding jingle is one of the most successful and psychologically potent marketing weapons ever created? What if I told you it wasn't an accident, but a calculated masterpiece of persuasion that built a billion-dollar company from the trunk of a station wagon? This isn't just a trip down memory lane. This is a deep dive into the machinery of influence. Over the next 10 parts, we are going to dismantle the Empire Today commercial piece by piece. We're going to uncover the hidden triggers, the revolutionary business strategies, and the unbelievable human story behind the brand that turned the boring, forgettable business of selling carpet into a national phenomenon. If you run a business, want to start a side hustle, or are just fascinated by what makes people buy, listen and remember, this is your playbook. By the end of this journey, you won't just know why you can't forget that jingle. You'll understand the science behind it. And you'll see how the very same principles that sold miles of Berber carpet can be used to build your own empire, whatever that may be. To understand the genius of Empire, you have to transport yourself back in time. Imagine a world before the internet, before social media, before on-demand anything. It was the age of 3 television channels, maybe a dozen if you were lucky. And on those channels, local advertising was a battlefield. A chaotic, low-budget war zone filled with shouting used car salesmen, furniture stores having a going out of business sale for the 10th year in a row, and lawyers promising to get you cash fast. The ads were loud, they were cheesy, and most of them were utterly forgettable. Now into this chaos, imagine you're trying to sell carpet. Think about it. Is there anything less exciting to shop for? It's a grudge purchase. Nobody wakes up on a Saturday morning thrilled to go look at swatches of beige flooring. You only buy it when you have to. When the dog has an accident, the kids spill grape juice, or your old shag carpet has finally become a biohazard. It's a commodity. Carpet is carpet. So how on earth do you make your company the only one people think of in that moment of desperate need? How do you cut through the noise and become a household name? This was the puzzle facing a man named Seymour Cohen in the suburbs of Chicago. Seymour wasn't a slick ad executive from Madison Avenue. He was an entrepreneur, a grinder. In 1959, he started a little business out of his home called Empire Plastic Covers. His big idea was selling clear vinyl slipcovers for furniture, the kind our grandparents used to keep the sofa in pristine condition. He was solving a problem, but soon he realized there was a much bigger problem, a much bigger opportunity, right under everyone's feet. He pivoted to flooring and Empire Carpet was born. The early days were the classic American startup story. Seymour, and later his adopted son, were selling carpet door to door, working out of a small warehouse, hustling every single day to make a sale. They knew their product and they knew their customer. They understood the frustration of going to a big, dusty showroom, being overwhelmed with choices, having to wait weeks for installation, and dealing with pushy salespeople. They knew there had to be a better way. But knowing that and getting the word out are two completely different things. They needed to get the phone to ring. And in the 1970s, that meant one thing: television. For a small local business, buying a TV spot was a massive gamble. It was expensive. You had one shot, 30 seconds, to make an impression. You couldn't afford fancy special effects or celebrity endorsements. Your ad had to be brutally efficient. It needed to be sticky. It needed to be a tool, not just an announcement. And so, in 1977, they hired a local Chicago ad agency to create a commercial. And at that agency was a man who would accidentally become the face and voice of the company for the next 35 years. His name was Lynn Hauldren. Lynn wasn't an actor. He wasn't a model. He was a copywriter, a creative guy, a former barbershop quartet singer who wrote ads for a living. The agency created a concept for Empire's commercial. And as part of the package, they hired a jingle writer to come up with a little tune. That tune was simple, direct, and built entirely around the one thing that mattered most: the phone number. 800-588-2300, Empire. Let's stop and really break that down because its construction is flawless. First, the phone number is the jingle. This is the masterstroke. In the pre-internet era, the phone number was the only call to action. Getting a potential customer to remember 10 random digits after a fleeting 30-second ad was the holy grail of advertising. Most companies would just flash it on the screen at the end. Empire made it the star of the show. They didn't just ask you to remember it. They drilled it into your skull with the power of music. Second, the melody is diabolically simple. It's an earworm. It uses just a few notes and a repetitive structure, much like a children's nursery rhyme. Our brains are hardwired to recognize and recall simple melodic patterns. It's why you can still sing the alphabet song. It's not complex or beautiful, it's functional. It's designed for maximum memory retention. Third, the rhythm. Notice the delivery. It's not a smooth, flowing melody. It's staccato. It's percussive. 5, 8, 8, 2, 300. Each number is hammered home like a nail. This rhythmic punctuation grabs your attention. It cuts through the background noise of whatever else is happening in the room. You can't ignore it. And finally, the climax. Empire. It's not sung, it's shouted. It's a declaration. A sonic exclamation point that brands the entire sequence. It's a burst of energy that seals the deal, connecting the easily remembered number directly to the company name. It's a perfect, self-contained marketing loop. When it came time to record the commercial, the agency needed a voiceover. Lynn Hauldren, the copywriter, stepped up to the microphone to record a temporary scratch track to guide the professional voice actor they planned to hire. But when the owner of Empire heard Lynn's recording, he loved it. He thought Lynn's voice, friendly, trustworthy, a little bit folksy, was perfect. He wasn't a slick announcer. He sounded like a real person. So they kept him. Lynn Hauldren, the ad man, became the Empire Man. He would go on to star in their commercials for decades, becoming one of the most recognizable faces in regional and later national television. But the jingle, as brilliant as it was only the beginning. It was the tip of a very sharp spear. A catchy tune is worthless if the business behind it can't deliver. And this is where the story gets truly fascinating. Because behind that friendly voice and that unforgettable number was a revolutionary business model that completely terrified their competitors and disrupted an entire industry. They didn't just sell flooring. They sold speed, convenience, and a set of promises that no one else dared to make. The jingle made the phone ring, but it was the engine they built behind the scenes that turned those calls into a billion-dollar empire. And that engine was built on a simple, game-changing idea that we now take for granted, but was pure science fiction at the time. They decided to bring the store to you. To understand why this was so revolutionary, you have to remember what buying carpet was like before Empire. It was a miserable, soul-crushing experience. First, you had to guess the dimensions of your room. You'd get out a tape measure, try to account for closets and weird angles, and inevitably you'd get it wrong. Then you'd drive to some cavernous, poorly lit warehouse showroom on the edge of town. You'd wander through aisles of giant, dusty rolls of carpet under buzzing fluorescent lights that made every color look sickly. A commission-hungry salesman in a cheap suit would follow you around, pressuring you to choose something, anything. You'd find a color you kind of liked, and they'd give you a tiny 2-inch square of it to take home. You'd put that little square on your floor, in your home's natural light, next to your sofa, and realize it looked completely different. The beige that looked warm in the store was now a depressing, muddy gray. So you'd drive all the way back, start the whole agonizing process over again, all while your old stained carpet stared back at you, mocking your indecision. And if you finally did make a choice, you'd then have to schedule an installer to come out weeks later. The entire process was designed to be as inconvenient and frustrating as humanly possible. Empire looked at that broken system and didn't just try to improve it. They completely inverted it. The idea of bringing the store to the customer wasn't just a gimmick. It was a psychological masterstroke that systematically eliminated every single point of friction in the buying process. Think about it from the customer's perspective. You see the commercial, you make one phone call. A friendly, professional salesperson shows up at your door at a time that works for you. They don't just bring one tiny square sample. They walk in with entire books filled with large, high-quality samples of carpet, laminate, vinyl, whatever you wanted. Suddenly, you weren't trying to remember the color of your curtains while standing in a warehouse. You were holding the actual product right next to your curtains. You could see how it looked with your furniture, under your lamps, in the morning sun and the evening shade. This simple act of seeing the product in its intended environment eliminated the single biggest fear of any home improvement project: the fear of making a costly mistake. It replaced uncertainty with confidence. Then came the next brilliant step. The salesperson didn't ask for your clumsy, hand-scribbled measurements. They were a trained estimator. They expertly measured the room themselves, calculating the exact amount of material needed, accounting for waste and guaranteeing the fit. The customer was absolved of all responsibility. There was no risk of buying too much or, even worse, too little. And then, right there at your dining room table, they would calculate the total price, all-inclusive. The carpet, the padding, the installation, the old carpet removal, one single easy-to-understand number. No hidden fees, no surprises. The entire miserable week-long ordeal of traditional carpet buying was condensed into a single, pleasant, one-hour visit. But this seamless customer experience was only possible because of a ruthless, brutally efficient machine operating behind the scenes. And the linchpin of that machine was Empire's controversial, yet undeniably brilliant, use of independent contractors. See, Empire didn't actually have thousands of salespeople and installers on its payroll as full-time employees. That would have been a logistical and financial nightmare. Instead, they built a massive network of freelancers. The salespeople, or sales representatives, were often 100% commission-based. They didn't get a salary. If they didn't close a deal, they didn't eat. This created a sales force with an incredible, almost primal incentive to sell. They weren't just showing you samples. Their livelihood depended on walking out of your home with a signed contract. This model allowed Empire to scale its sales force up or down almost instantly in any market without the massive overhead of salaries, benefits, and company cars. If a city was booming, they'd recruit more contractors. If it slowed down, they'd simply have less work to give out. It was the gig economy, decades before anyone had a smartphone. The same model applied to the installers. They weren't Empire employees either. They were local, independent flooring installers who contracted with Empire for jobs. This is how Empire could make its most audacious, industry-shattering promise: next-day installation. This wasn't just a selling point. It was the ultimate weapon. In an industry where customers were used to waiting weeks, sometimes even months between purchase and installation, Empire's promise felt like magic. It tapped into a deep-seated human desire for instant gratification. You could decide you wanted new carpet on a Tuesday afternoon and be walking on it barefoot on Wednesday evening. This created an incredible sense of urgency. Why wait? Why shop around for weeks when you could have the entire project done, finished, and complete in less than 24 hours? It was an offer that was almost impossible to refuse. To pull this off, Empire had to become a master of logistics. Every night, in warehouses across the country, a complex ballet took place. Orders that were signed just hours earlier were processed. The correct rolls of carpet and padding were cut, loaded onto trucks, and assigned to an installer from their network. That installer would receive their assignments for the next day, show up at the customer's house, and get the job done. It was a just-in-time delivery system for home renovation, a business model that treated flooring like a pizza delivery service. This entire system, the shop-at-home convenience, the professional measurement, the on-the-spot quote, and the killer promise of next-day installation, was designed for one purpose: to close the sale on the very first visit. They knew that if they let a customer think about it, the odds of that sale closing would plummet. The salesperson would leave, the urgency would fade, and the customer might call a competitor. The entire in-home experience was a finely tuned machine built to take a customer from curiosity to a signed contract in under an hour. And it worked. It worked better than anyone could have possibly imagined. The model was so effective, so profitable, and so scalable that it completely terrified their old-school, brick-and-mortar competitors who were stuck with the massive overhead of showrooms and salaried employees. Empire had created an asset-light, high-volume, cash-generating monster. But this powerful machine was useless if it wasn't being fed. It needed a constant, massive flow of leads. It needed people's phones to be ringing off the hook, day and night, in every city they operated in. The entire billion-dollar business model rested on the company's ability to generate that initial phone call. And to do that, they would need to create an advertisement so powerful, so memorable, and so scientifically engineered to stick in your brain that it would become a permanent piece of American pop culture. They needed a jingle. But this wasn't just about creating a catchy tune. This was about engineering a memory. In the late 1970s, the battle for consumer attention was a brutal hand-to-hand fight. The airwaves and newspapers were a chaotic storm of information, a blizzard of brand names, product claims, and phone numbers, all screaming to be noticed. Most of it was just noise, forgotten the instant you turned the page or the channel changed. Seymour's problem was that Empire was just more noise. Carpet, flooring, shop at home. These were generic concepts. He needed a weapon, a surgical tool designed to bypass the conscious mind and embed a single critical piece of information directly into the long-term memory of millions of people. That information was a phone number. The jingle was the delivery system. The task fell to a Chicago-based advertising agency called Allen Volsky and Friends. And within that agency was a man who, by all accounts, was an unlikely candidate to create a cultural artifact. His name was Lynn Hauldren. He wasn't a rock star composer or a slick Madison Avenue executive. He was a quiet, unassuming copywriter, a veteran of World War II, a guy who had spent years writing ads for clients like Rainier Beer and the Wisconsin Tourism Board. He was known for being dependable, creative, and humble. He was not known for writing earworms that would echo through the decades. The story of the jingle's creation has become something of a marketing legend. As the tale goes, Hauldren was at home, tinkering in his basement workshop, wrestling with the Empire account. The challenge was immense. How do you make a phone number not just memorable but singable? How do you cram a business model, shop-at-home service for carpet and flooring, and a call to action into a few seconds of airtime? Most importantly, how do you make it stick? Phone numbers are notoriously difficult to remember. They are abstract, arbitrary sequences of digits. Our brains aren't wired to retain them easily. You can't visualize a phone number. You can't attach an emotion to it. Unless you disguise it, you wrap it in something the brain is good at remembering: melody and rhythm. This is the first piece of the puzzle, the foundational science of the Empire jingle. It's a mnemonic device of the highest order. A mnemonic is a trick, a pattern of letters or ideas that helps you recall something more complex. Think of Roy G. Biv for the colors of the rainbow. Hauldren's task was to create an auditory mnemonic for a 10-digit number. He started not with the number, but with the brand name, Empire. He needed a simple melody, one that felt familiar even on the first listen. What he came up with uses a basic diatonic scale, the kind of scale you find in nursery rhymes and folk songs. It's musically simple, almost childlike. There are no complex chords, no surprising harmonic shifts. It's as easy for the brain to process as, "Twinkle, twinkle, little star." This simplicity is not a weakness. It's the jingle's greatest strength. It makes the melody incredibly easy to learn, to recall, and most critically, to get stuck in your head. It's the very definition of an earworm. Then came the lyrics. They had to be just as simple. When you have a flooring desire, it's not Shakespeare, and it's not supposed to be. The word desire is functional. It rhymes, it sets up the brand name, and it taps into a basic consumer emotion. But the real masterstroke was what came next. He didn't just say the phone number. He didn't just set it to music. He deconstructed it, transforming it from a string of numbers into a rhythmic, percussive chant. Listen to how it's structured. 800-588-2300. Say it out loud. Feel the rhythm. It's not 588-2300. That's clunky and forgettable. Hauldren parsed it into a lyrical phrase with a distinct cadence. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It has a beat. It has a pulse. The phrase 2300 is pure genius. Nobody says a phone number like that in real life. You'd say 2300, but 2300 scans perfectly. Fits the musical phrase. It has the right number of syllables. Feels satisfying to say and to hear. He took an abstract piece of data and turned it into a piece of music. He was programming the human brain. Every time you hear it, the neural pathways in your auditory cortex associated with that specific melodic and rhythmic pattern get a little bit stronger. It's like walking the same path in a forest over and over again. Eventually, a clear trail is formed. After just a few repetitions of the Empire jingle, that phone number isn't something you're trying to remember anymore. It's something your brain knows on a fundamental, almost involuntary level. It's stored right next to your ABCs and happy birthday. But Hauldren knew the jingle needed one more thing. It needed to sell. A great jingle doesn't just make you remember, it makes you act. And so, after the final triumphant singing of the brand name, Empire, the music cuts out, and a single spoken word lands with incredible force. Today, this shift is psychologically brilliant. The entire jingle up to that point is musical, melodic, almost hypnotic. It lulls you into a state of passive listening. Then the sudden switch to a spoken word breaks that spell. It's a pattern interrupt. It grabs your attention in a new way and delivers a direct command. It's not call us whenever you feel like it. It's not think about us for your future flooring needs. It's today. The word creates urgency. It implies that your flooring desire is a problem that needs an immediate solution. and Empire is that solution. It's a call to action baked into the very DNA of the jingle. So there it was, crafted in a basement by a humble copywriter. A few simple notes, a handful of carefully chosen words, and a rhythmically perfect phone number. It was a masterpiece of mnemonic engineering. Lynn Hauldren took the jingle to the agency, and they loved it. Seymour Milstein and his team at Empire loved it. They knew instantly that this was it. This was the weapon they had been looking for. This little tune could cut through the noise and embed Empire into the American consciousness. They recorded a demo using a professional group of jingle singers, the kind with perfect pitch and polished anonymous voices. The result was clean, professional, and technically perfect. But it was missing something. It was missing a soul. It needed a voice that felt real, authentic, trustworthy. It needed to sound less like a slick advertisement from a giant corporation and more like a helpful recommendation from a friendly neighbor. The agency and Empire executives listened to the polished demo, and then they listened to the rough cut, the one with Lynn Hauldren's own unrefined, slightly reedy voice on it, the one he'd recorded just to show them how the melody went. And in that moment they realized two things. First, they had their jingle. And second, they had just accidentally found the face and the voice of their entire company. It was a classic case of what creatives call demo love. The strange phenomenon where the rough, unpolished demo version of a song or a jingle has a magic that the final, professionally produced version just can't capture. It has a raw energy, an authenticity that gets scrubbed away by studio polish. And Lynn Hauldren's demo had it in spades. His voice wasn't smooth. It wasn't professional. It was thin, a little shaky, and profoundly, unforgettably real. He sounded less like a singer and more like your grandpa trying to remember the words to a song at a family barbecue. And that was the genius of it. In a world of slick, baritone voice pitchmen promising you the world, here was a guy who sounded like he might need help carrying the groceries in from the car. He sounded trustworthy. But convincing Lynn of this was another matter entirely. He was, by all accounts, a humble, quiet, and deeply private man. He was a copywriter. He worked behind the scenes, crafting words on a page. The idea of being the face and voice of a major company was not just foreign to him. It was horrifying. He reportedly hated his own singing voice and thought the executives were playing a prank on him when they said they wanted to use the demo tape as the final version. He argued against it, insisting they hire a professional. But the owner, Seymour Cohen, was adamant. He had a gut feeling. He knew that the very thing Lynn saw as a weakness, his unpolished everyman quality, was actually their greatest strength. It was the ultimate differentiator. So the reluctant star was born. They didn't try to change him. They leaned into it. They built the entire brand persona around this newfound icon of authenticity. They put him in a simple blue work shirt. They kept his signature glasses. They didn't give him a script full of marketing jargon. They just had him deliver simple, earnest lines. He wasn't playing a character. He was an amplified version of himself. He became the Empire Man. But he wasn't a superhero of home improvement. He was the friendly, reliable guy next door who just happened to know a lot about carpet. This was a revolutionary act in the high-pressure world of television advertising. They weren't selling luxury or aspiration. They were selling trust. They were selling the idea that the man on the screen was the kind of person you'd be comfortable letting into your home. With their spokesman, their jingle, and their phone number all set, they needed one more piece to complete the puzzle: the visuals. And here again they zigged where everyone else zagged. Instead of filming Lynn in a showroom or on a job site, they made an even more radical choice. They turned him into a cartoon. This decision was a stroke of pure genius for several reasons. First, it solved the Lynn Hauldren problem. The real Lynn was camera-shy and frankly would age. The animated Empire Man, however, was timeless. He could be 55 years old forever, perpetually friendly, perpetually ready to help. He would never get sick, never have a bad day, and never retire. He was a permanent, consistent brand asset. Second, the animation style itself was crucial. It wasn't slick, Disney-level animation. It was simple, almost rudimentary line drawing. It had a comforting, storybook quality to it. This visual simplicity mirrored the sonic simplicity of the jingle and the vocal simplicity of Lynn's voice. It all felt like one cohesive, unpretentious package. The cartoon character could pop up anywhere, on a roll of carpet, in a customer's living room, on the side of a van, without it feeling jarring. It made the brand feel approachable and non-threatening. It was advertising that didn't feel like advertising. It felt more like a public service announcement from a friendly neighbor. And then there was the jingle itself. Let's break down why this specific combination of notes and numbers burrowed its way into the collective American psyche. It's more than just catchy. It's a masterclass in sonic branding. The melody is incredibly simple, using what's called a diatonic scale, the basic do-re-mi scale we all learn as children. There are no weird notes, no complex harmonies. It's as musically straightforward as "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star." This makes it incredibly easy for our brains to process and, more importantly, to remember. The rhythm is just as simple, a steady marching beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. This predictability is comforting and makes the melody feel inevitable. But the real secret weapon was integrating the phone number directly into the melody. This wasn't a new trick, but Empire perfected it. Listen to how you sing it in your head. 800, 580, 100. Empire. The syllables of the numbers are stretched and compressed to fit the musical phrase perfectly. The most brilliant part is the end. The number 2300 resolves on a powerful, satisfying musical cadence, and then bam, the brand name Empire lands right on the downbeat, functioning as the final triumphant chord. It creates a complete musical thought. Your brain doesn't just hear a phone number, it hears a finished song. It's the advertising equivalent of an earworm, a sonic tattoo that, once heard, is nearly impossible to erase. So now they had all the ingredients: the reluctant, authentic spokesman, the simple, timeless animation, and the psychologically engineered, unforgettable jingle. It was a trifecta of low-budget charm. Each element on its own was quirky, maybe even a little amateurish. The reedy voice, the basic cartoon, the simple tune. But when combined, they created a powerful synergy. They projected an image of a company that was too busy providing good service and fair prices to worry about slick production values. It was an illusion, of course. This was a sophisticated, multi-million-dollar advertising campaign, but it was an illusion that felt completely, utterly true. In 1977, the first of these commercials hit the airwaves in Chicago. There was no big explosion, no immediate national conversation. It was just there. A quirky little commercial with a cartoon man and a weirdly hypnotic song, running in the cheap airtime slots late at night or on weekend afternoons. At first, people probably didn't know what to make of it. It was so different from the polished, loud, and aggressive commercials for car dealerships or other home service companies. It was quiet, it was simple, and it was strange. The phone at Empire didn't instantly start ringing off the hook. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, something began to shift. The jingle was starting to get stuck in people's heads. They'd find themselves humming it in the shower, or tapping out the rhythm on their steering wheel. The friendly cartoon face was becoming a familiar sight. They had lit a fuse and the slow burn had begun. Nobody, not even Seymour Cohen or Lynn Hauldren, could have possibly imagined the cultural wildfire that was about to ignite. The year is 1982. Ronald Reagan is in the White House, the first CD player is sold in Japan, and a seismic shift is rumbling through the American business landscape. This shift had nothing to do with computers or the internet, not yet. It had to do with the telephone. For decades, the American telephone system was a monolithic monopoly run by AT&T, affectionately or not so affectionately known as Ma Bell. Long-distance calls were expensive, and the idea of a nationwide, toll-free number was a complex, costly luxury reserved for massive corporations like hotel chains or airlines. But in 1982, a landmark antitrust lawsuit broke up AT&T's monopoly. It was the corporate equivalent of the Big Bang. The telecommunications universe fractured, creating a chaotic, competitive new marketplace. And out of that chaos, one particular service began to proliferate: the 800 number. Suddenly, what was once a prohibitive expense became an accessible, powerful tool for any business with national ambitions. For Seymour Cohen and the team at Empire, this wasn't just an opportunity. It was the missing piece of the puzzle. Think about it. Before this, if Empire wanted to advertise in, say, Philadelphia, they needed a Philadelphia phone number. If they expanded to Boston, they needed a Boston number. Each new city meant a new number to put in the commercial, a new jingle to record, a logistical and marketing nightmare that capped their growth. The 800 number changed everything. It vaporized geography. One number could now serve the entire country. One commercial, one jingle, one point of contact for millions of potential customers. They secured 1-800-588-2300. It doesn't exactly roll off the tongue, does it? But it was a start, and it was functional. It allowed them to test the waters of a national strategy. But the real magic happened when they managed to acquire a number that was more than a number. It was a mnemonic device, a hook, a brand. 800-588-2300. Empire. The jingle wasn't just a song anymore. It was now inextricably linked to the phone number itself. The melody gave you the digits. Singing the tune was like dialing the phone with your memory. This was marketing black magic. They had created a closed loop. The advertisement delivered the brand, the song, and the direct call to action in a single unforgettable package. The fuse that had been lit in Chicago was now attached to a nationwide rocket. All it needed was the right fuel. That fuel was the other great explosion of the 1980s, cable television. In the 1970s, most Americans had a handful of channels: ABC, CBS, NBC, PBS, and maybe a local independent station or two. Advertising time was scarce and incredibly expensive. A 30-second spot on a popular primetime show was a king's ransom, reserved for giants like Coca-Cola, Ford, and Procter & Gamble. But as cable lines snaked their way across American suburbs and into living rooms, the media landscape shattered. Suddenly, there wasn't just a handful of channels, there were dozens. CNN, MTV, ESPN, USA Network, TNT. It was a content gold rush, and all these new channels had one thing in common. They had 24 hours of airtime to fill, and they needed to sell ads to survive. This created a buyer's market for advertisers. The price of a 30-second spot plummeted. You could now buy airtime during a weekday afternoon movie, late at night, or on a niche channel for a fraction of the cost of primetime. For a high-gloss cinematic Pepsi commercial, this wasn't ideal. But for Empire's simple, low-budget animated spot, it was paradise. Their strategy wasn't about landing one perfect, expensive punch. It was about 1,000 tiny jabs. They didn't need to be on during Cheers. They could be on at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, and 4 p.m., and 11 p.m., and 2 a.m. They could blanket the airwaves. This is where the true, almost insidious genius of the Empire campaign revealed itself. It was a strategy built on the principle of sheer brute force repetition. The commercial became an unavoidable part of the American televisual experience. You'd be watching a movie and there was the Empire Man. You'd flip the channel to catch the news and there was the jingle. You'd wake up in the middle of the night and turn on the TV, and Lynn Hauldren's calm, grandfatherly voice would be there, telling you to call Empire. Psychologists call this the mere exposure effect. It's a cognitive bias where people develop a preference for things simply because they are familiar with them. You don't have to like the Empire commercial. You don't have to find it clever or funny. You just have to see it, again and again and again. The constant repetition drills the brand, the jingle, and that all-important 800 number so deep into your subconscious that it becomes a reflex. The next time a glass of water spills on your shag carpet, or you decide the avocado green linoleum has to go, what's the first name that pops into your head? It isn't a company you saw once in a slick, award-winning ad. It's the one you've heard 1,000 times. It's Empire. The familiarity created a sense of reliability, of permanence. They were always there, so they must be trustworthy. And let's talk about the sound of that trust. Lynn Hauldren's voice. In an era of fast-talking, hard-selling pitchmen, Hauldren's delivery was the complete opposite. It was gentle. It was calm. It was neighborly. He wasn't yelling at you to buy now. He was just a guy, a friendly-sounding man, maybe someone who looked like your own grandpa telling you about a service. This was a masterstroke. His unpolished, authentic delivery cut through the clutter of slick ad speak. It was disarming. You weren't being sold to, you were being helped. This unassuming ad man from Chicago became the voice of the company, and his gentle presence was the perfect counterbalance to the campaign's relentless, almost aggressive, repetition. The combination was unstoppable. A simple, memorable cartoon. A jingle that was a legitimate earworm. A toll-free number embedded in the song itself. And a media buying strategy that turned cable television's biggest weakness, its vast, cheap, empty airtime, into Empire's greatest strength. The phones at Empire's headquarters started ringing and they never ever stopped. The call volume became a tidal wave. They were no longer just a Chicago company. They were a national force, expanding their operations city by city, franchise by franchise, chasing the signal of their own commercial as it saturated the country. They had cracked the code. They had built a perfect marketing machine, a self-perpetuating engine of brand awareness. But something else was happening, something they couldn't have planned for. The commercial was beginning to transcend its purpose. It was so ubiquitous, so much a part of the daily fabric of life that it started to change. It stopped being just an ad people saw and started becoming a thing people talked about. It was becoming a punchline, a reference, a shared cultural touchstone. The Empire Man wasn't just a character in a commercial anymore. He was becoming a piece of American folklore. And like all folklore, it was about to be retold, remixed, and parroted in ways that would cement its place in history forever. And the most potent form of retelling, the ultimate sign that something has broken free from its commercial container and entered the cultural bloodstream, is parody. Parody is the sincerest form of flattery, but it's also a stress test. It's the moment culture grabs hold of an idea, turns it upside down, and shakes it to see what falls out. For many ads, this is where the story ends. They become a punchline, their original message diluted and lost in the joke. But for Empire, something different happened. The parodies didn't weaken it. They made it immortal. The first and perhaps most significant tremor of this parody earthquake came from the epicenter of American comedy, Saturday Night Live. In 1993, the late, great Chris Farley, a comedic force of nature, starred in a sketch called Robbie's Donut and Coffee Shop. He wasn't playing the Empire Man, not directly. He was playing Matt Foley, motivational speaker. But later in the sketch, he appears in a low-budget commercial for his own donut shop. The setup is a perfect mirror of the Empire aesthetic. Grainy video, a cluttered office, and a pitchman Farley, who is pure, unadulterated, chaotic energy. He's not calm or reassuring. He's a sweaty, desperate, screaming mess promising donuts, made of the finest ingredients on earth. The punchline comes when he gives out the phone number. He yells, "Call 555. And then, instead of a number, he just screams the iconic 8-note Empire jingle at the top of his lungs. BOMBOMBOMBOM. BOMBOMBOMBOM. Call now. The studio audience explodes. Why? Because the joke isn't just about a funny man screaming. The joke is about the shared, universal recognition of that jingle. In that moment, the Empire jingle ceased to be just a phone number. It became a piece of punctuation. It was a stand-in for the entire concept of a low-budget, unforgettable, slightly annoying but you can't get it out of your head local commercial. Farley and the SNL writers understood that they didn't need to explain the reference. The jingle was the explanation. It was a cultural shortcut that every single person watching at home understood instantly. This wasn't just a parody of Empire. It was a coronation. Saturday Night Live had just declared the Empire jingle a national treasure of comedic source material. But it didn't stop in live action. The true test of a cultural artifact's reach is when it crosses mediums. Soon, the Empire Man and his jingle began appearing in the world of animation, a space reserved for only the most recognizable pop culture icons. Shows like The Simpsons, Family Guy, and American Dad, the holy trinity of animated satire, all took their swings. In one instance, you might see a character humming the tune absent-mindedly. In another, a full-blown parody commercial would appear, selling some absurd product, but always with that same earnest on-camera spokesman and, of course, that unmistakable 8-note melody. This was significant for a critical reason. Animation, by its nature, has to communicate ideas quickly and visually. Animators and writers rely on a shared visual and auditory library with their audience. They use instantly recognizable symbols to tell jokes efficiently. The fact that the Empire jingle and the persona of the Empire Man could be dropped into Springfield or Quahog without any context proves how deeply embedded they were. They had become as recognizable as the Superman theme or the shape of a Mickey Mouse silhouette. They were part of the American cultural toolkit, a free-to-use asset for any comedian or writer looking for a reliable laugh. The parodies were a testament to the commercial's incredible efficiency. It had done its job so well that it had become a cliché, and in the world of comedy, a well-understood cliché is pure gold. Yet, perhaps the most fascinating chapter in the parody story happened away from the bright lights of network television. It happened in the basements and public access television studios of America. Before YouTube, before viral videos were a daily occurrence, there was a thriving subculture of amateur filmmakers and local comedians making their own content. And the Empire commercial was a favorite target. You'd see college students making spoofs for film projects, replacing carpeting with pizza or textbooks. Local sketch comedy shows broadcast at 2 a.m. on a fuzzy channel would create their own bumbling off-brand Empire Man. This was folklore in its purest form. This wasn't highly paid writers in New York or Los Angeles. This was regular people, armed with a camcorder and a love for the source material. They were remixing the commercial because it belonged to them. It was part of their daily life, as familiar as the mailman or the morning news. The commercial's low-budget, do-it-yourself aesthetic was, ironically, its greatest strength in this arena. You didn't need a Hollywood studio to parody it. You just needed a friend, a cheap camera, and an office chair. The barrier to entry was non-existent, which democratized the parody process and allowed it to flourish at a grassroots level. These VHS tapes and low-quality clips were passed around, creating a pre-internet version of a viral meme. So, what was the magic formula? Why did this specific commercial become such a lightning rod for parody when so many others faded away? It comes down to a perfect storm of 4 key elements. First, the jingle. It's musically simple, repetitive, and has no lyrics. This makes it a blank canvas. You can sing it, scream it, play it on a tuba. It's instantly recognizable and infinitely malleable. Second, the character. The Empire Man was the epitome of sincerity. He wasn't winking at the camera. He genuinely seemed to believe he was providing a revolutionary service. This earnestness is a perfect foil for irony and satire. It's easy to make fun of someone who is taking themselves completely seriously. Third, as we've seen, was the lo-fi production value. The slightly grainy footage, the simple office set, the direct-to-camera address. It all felt incredibly authentic and, more importantly, incredibly easy to replicate. It was an invitation to be copied. And fourth, the sheer brute force repetition. The media blitz that Empire launched meant that you couldn't escape it. It was ambient noise in the American home. This saturation created a shared experience on a massive scale. Everyone had the same reference point, which is the foundational requirement for any successful parody. Ultimately, the wave of parodies created a bizarre and powerful feedback loop. You would think that being the butt of a national joke would hurt a brand. But for Empire, it was the opposite. Every time Chris Farley screamed the jingle, every time an animated character hummed the tune, it was another free advertisement for Empire. The parodies weren't just making fun of the commercial. They were reminding millions of people that it existed. They kept the brand in the cultural conversation long after the initial ad spend should have worn off. The company, and Lynn Hauldren himself, were now stewards of a cultural icon, whether they had intended to be or not. They had created something that was no longer entirely their own. It belonged to the comedians, the animators, the college kids with camcorders, and every single person who ever found themselves humming that 8-note jingle while waiting in line at the grocery store. The commercial had achieved a new level of existence, transcending its original purpose. But this new level of fame brought with it a new set of challenges and a question that the company would soon be forced to answer. What do you do when your simple, humble pitchman becomes a bona fide celebrity? For Empire Carpet, the answer wasn't simple because the man himself, Lynn Hauldren, was never supposed to be the star. He was an advertising copywriter, a man who worked behind the scenes crafting messages. He was comfortable with words on a page, not a camera in his face. And yet, suddenly, he was one of the most recognizable faces in major American cities. People would stop him in the grocery store on the street, asking him to say the line. Children would sing the jingle at him. He was no longer just Lynn Hauldren. He was the Empire Man. This created a fascinating and entirely unforeseen dilemma for the company. On one hand, they had struck marketing gold. Their spokesman wasn't a slick, polished actor who viewers knew was just playing a part. He was genuine. He felt like the real owner, a friendly, trustworthy guy who would actually stand behind his product. This authenticity was priceless. On the other hand, their entire brand identity was now tied to a single aging employee who had never signed up for this level of fame. What if he wanted to retire? What if he got sick? What if he simply got tired of being the Empire Man? The company was walking a tightrope. They needed to leverage his popularity without exploiting him, and they needed to figure out a succession plan for a mascot who was never meant to be one. Lynn, for his part, handled the newfound celebrity with incredible grace and humility. By all accounts, he was a quiet, kind, family man who found the whole situation more amusing than anything else. He never let it go to his head. He continued working his day job at the ad agency for years, writing copy for other clients, even as his face was becoming a television icon. He was the antithesis of a Hollywood star. He was just a guy from Illinois who happened to star in a commercial that refused to disappear. This relatability only made him, and by extension the brand, more beloved. He wasn't acting trustworthy. He just was. And the American public could feel that. But as the commercial's fame grew, it began to take on a life of its own, far beyond what Empire Carpet or Lynn Hauldren could control. It had officially reached the highest level of cultural saturation. It became a target for parody. This is the moment a piece of media transcends advertising and becomes a permanent fixture in the pop culture lexicon. Late-night talk show hosts would reference it. Sketch comedy shows had a field day. You had local TV shows doing their own goofy versions. One of the most famous examples came from Saturday Night Live in the 90s, with Chris Farley playing a frustrated, out-of-control carpet installer, screaming the famous phone number into the camera. The joke worked because every single person in the audience from New York to Los Angeles knew the source material instantly. They didn't need any explanation. The parodies weren't malicious. They were a form of flattery. They were a sign that the jingle, the phone number, and the friendly face of the Empire Man were as recognizable as a national anthem or a pledge of allegiance in the regions where they aired. It meant that Empire had achieved a level of brand recognition that companies spend billions of dollars to attain and rarely ever do. But this level of fame also brought darker, more complicated challenges. Parody is one thing, outright infringement is another. As Empire expanded into new markets, they often found local copycats already there. Small, regional businesses would use similar-sounding jingles, slightly altered phone numbers, or even spokespeople who vaguely resembled the Empire Man. This wasn't just an annoyance. It was a direct threat to the brand's identity. If a customer has a bad experience with a company called, say, Vampire Flooring, that uses a similar jingle, that negative association could easily splash back onto Empire. They had to become fiercely protective of their intellectual property. The company found itself in a constant battle to protect its trademark jingle and its iconic phone number. They sent out cease and desist letters. They filed lawsuits. This wasn't about being corporate bullies, it was about survival. They had spent decades and millions of dollars building a reputation for speed, service, and quality, all encapsulated in that simple 8-note jingle. Allowing others to dilute it or co-opt it for their own purposes would be brand suicide. The simple homespun ad campaign had now spawned a complex legal arm, dedicated to patrolling the airwaves in yellow pages for imposters. The little carpet company from Chicago was now playing in the big leagues, and that meant defending its turf. Amidst all of this, the celebrity, the parodies, the legal fights, the clock was still ticking. Lynn Hauldren was getting older. While he remained the voice of the brand for decades, his on-screen appearances became less frequent. The company faced the ultimate question. How do you replace an icon? How do you move on from a face and a voice that is the brand, without alienating the audience that grew up with him? You can't just hire another actor to put on a pair of glasses and a blue sweater. The public would see right through it. The authenticity that made the campaign so successful would be shattered. The solution they landed on was nothing short of genius. It was a move that would solve the problem of Hauldren's aging, future-proof the brand, and open up a whole new world of creative possibilities. They decided to turn the Empire Man into a cartoon. Sometime in the 2000s, a new character began appearing in the commercials. A friendly, chipper, animated version of the Empire Man. He had the same glasses, the same sweater, the same kind, reassuring demeanor. And most importantly, he had the same voice. Lynn Hauldren continued to provide the voiceover, lending decades of audience trust to this new animated avatar. This was the masterstroke. The company managed to separate the character of the Empire Man from the person of Lynn Hauldren. The animated character could do things a real person couldn't. He could pop out of a roll of carpet, fly through a house on a magic carpet, or snap his fingers to instantly install a new floor. The commercials became more dynamic, more visually interesting, perfectly suited for a new generation of viewers. But the core message, the core feeling of trust and reliability, remained intact because the voice was the same. It was the perfect bridge between the company's past and its future. The cartoon character would never age. He would never retire. He could exist forever, a permanent, immortal symbol of the brand. It was a seamless transition, executed so perfectly that most viewers barely registered the change. They just knew that the friendly Empire Man was still there, still promising next-day installation. By turning their accidental celebrity into a deliberate cartoon, Empire ensured that their icon would outlive them all, his jingle echoing into eternity. But this animated evolution also marked a fundamental shift in the company's strategy, a move away from its simple, practical roots and towards a much more ambitious future. This ambition wasn't just about selling more carpet in more cities. It was a fundamental reimagining of what Empire was. For decades, the company had a singular, laser-focused identity: flooring. Carpet, hardwood, laminate, if you walked on it, they sold it. The jingle, the vans, the little animated man, it all screamed one thing. But the leaders at Empire saw a ceiling. How many times does a single household replace its floors? Once a decade? Maybe twice? The real money, the sustainable long-term growth, wasn't just in acquiring new customers, it was in selling more to the customers they already had. They looked at their own business model and saw a powerful untapped machine. They had a national call center infrastructure. They had a sophisticated logistics network designed to get samples and installers to homes on a moment's notice. And most importantly, they had a brand name that, thanks to billions of advertising impressions, was already inside millions of American homes. The question became, what else could this machine sell? The answer, it turned out, was window treatments, blinds, shades. It was a logical first step. It was another surface in the home, it required in-home consultation, and it leveraged their existing sales force. But it was also a gamble of monumental proportions. This was the moment the brand risked everything. Because the second you add "and blinds" to your message, you are no longer the flooring company. You are something else, something less defined. The unparalleled strength of the Empire brand was its simplicity. You needed floors? You called Empire. There was no ambiguity. Now they were asking consumers to expand their perception, to rewire decades of conditioning. It was like Coca-Cola suddenly announcing they were also selling potato chips. It might make perfect business sense on a spreadsheet, but in the mind of the consumer, it creates a moment of cognitive dissonance, a flicker of confusion. And in the brutal, fast-paced world of direct response advertising, a flicker is all it takes to lose a customer. This is where the animated Empire man truly earned his salary. He became the bridge over this chasm of brand confusion. The real-life Lynn Hauldren was a flooring guy. Putting him in a commercial talking about vertical blinds might have felt inauthentic. But the cartoon character? He could be anything they wanted him to be. He was pure brand essence, untethered to a specific product. Suddenly, the commercials began to change. The animated man would still pop out of a roll of carpet, but then he'd zip over to a window, and with a flourish, showcase a beautiful set of new shades. The voiceover, often still Lynn Hauldren's, would say something like, "You trust us for your floors, now trust us for your windows." He was the familiar, trusted guide leading customers into new territory. He was their Trojan horse, smuggling a new business line into the fortress of the American mind using the trust he'd already built. The jingle, however, remained sacred. They didn't dare change it to 800-588-2300 blinds. The jingle was the front door. Its only job was to get you to knock. Once a salesperson was on the phone or in the home, then they could introduce the full catalog of services. This was a masterstroke of marketing discipline. They understood that the 30-second commercial wasn't a brochure. It was a hook. The iconic power of Empire, today, was too valuable to dilute with specifics. They let the visuals do the talking, while the unforgettable audio cue remained untouched, a constant, reliable anchor in a sea of changing strategy. And for a while it worked. It worked spectacularly. The expansion into window treatments was a success, proving the brand was more elastic than some might have feared. So they did it again. Later, they would add cabinet refacing to their list of services. Once again, the animated Empire man was the star, this time appearing in a kitchen, snapping his fingers as old, dated cabinets were magically transformed. The company was no longer a flooring company. It was now a legitimate home services empire, a one-stop shop for some of the most common home improvement projects. Their revenue soared. Their footprint expanded. They were now competing on multiple fronts, capturing a larger and larger share of the homeowner's renovation budget. But this explosive growth came at a cost, creating deep, unseen cracks in the foundation. The beautiful simplicity of the original business was gone. The operational complexity was staggering. Managing a supply chain for carpet and laminate is one thing. Managing the infinitely customizable world of window treatments and the skilled labor-intensive process of cabinet refacing is a different universe. The training for salespeople, the coordination of installers, the potential points of failure for customer service, it all multiplied exponentially. A customer might have a flawless flooring installation but a disastrous experience with their blinds, and to them it was all one company, Empire. The brand's reputation was now only as strong as its weakest product line. Furthermore, Empire was now wading into ponds with much bigger fish. When they were just selling flooring, their main competition was a fragmented landscape of local mom-and-pop carpet stores, businesses they could easily out-advertise and outmaneuver. But the world of window treatments had its own giants, established brands like Hunter Douglas and Bali. The cabinet world had its own ecosystem of specialized contractors. In these new arenas, Empire wasn't the 800-pound gorilla. They were the new guy, the generalist trying to compete with specialists. They were fighting a multi-front war, and every new product they added was another front, another army of competitors to fend off. The company had successfully leveraged its iconic branding to achieve massive scale, transforming from a regional flooring dealer into a national home improvement powerhouse. The animated man and his jingle had proven to be one of the most powerful marketing assets in American business history, capable of stretching and bending to accommodate a whole new corporate vision. But in doing so, they had traded focus for scale, simplicity for complexity. They had solved the problem of growth, but in its place they created a new, more dangerous set of problems. The question was no longer how big Empire could get. The question was whether this sprawling, complex empire had become too big, too unwieldy, to maintain the very quality and customer trust that had allowed it to grow in the first place. The brand had reached the peak of its power, but it was standing on a much more precarious ledge than ever before. And that precarious ledge began to crumble almost immediately, not from one single earthquake, but from 1,000 tiny tremors. The franchise model that had allowed for such explosive growth became Empire's Achilles heel. When you're a local Chicago business, you can personally ensure every installer is a craftsman and every customer is satisfied. But when you have hundreds of franchisees and thousands of subcontractors spread across 80 different metropolitan areas, that personal touch vanishes. Quality control becomes a logistical nightmare. For every franchisee who upheld the original standard of excellence, there were others who cut corners, hired inexperienced labor, or prioritized volume over quality. Suddenly, the monolithic brand Empire wasn't a guarantee of a specific standard. It was a lottery. You might get a fantastic crew or you might get a disaster. And people started talking. Before the 2000s, a bad customer experience was a localized event. You'd tell your neighbors, maybe a few friends. The damage was contained. But now a new force was emerging. A digital town square where a single angry voice could be amplified 1,000,000 times over. The internet. Websites like the Better Business Bureau went from dusty filing cabinets to online databases, searchable by anyone. And the reports started flooding in. Complaints about high-pressure sales tactics, shoddy installation work, flooring that buckled or peeled just months after being laid. Stories of installers showing up late, or not at all, leaving families with torn-up living rooms for days on end. The promise of next-day installation sometimes turned into a weeks-long ordeal of unreturned phone calls. Each negative review was a crack in the brand's armor. The jingle promised simplicity and reliability, but the online chatter painted a very different picture. It was a picture of a company that had grown too fast, a corporate behemoth that had lost connection with the homeowners it was meant to serve. The very scale that made them a national phenomenon now made them seem impersonal and unaccountable. A complaint wasn't going to Seymour Cohen anymore. It was going to a call center maybe hundreds of miles away, becoming just another ticket in a vast, faceless system. Then, in 2008, the ground fell out from under the entire American economy. The Great Recession hit the housing market like a meteor. Home values plummeted, foreclosures skyrocketed, and the home improvement industry went into a deep freeze. Suddenly, new carpet wasn't a priority. Refinishing the hardwood floors could wait. People were focused on keeping their homes, not upgrading them. For a business like Empire built on discretionary spending, this was a catastrophic blow. Their massive advertising budget, once their greatest asset, became an anchor, a colossal expense in a market where no one was buying. The phones, which had been ringing off the hook for decades, grew quieter. The constant, thrumming engine of growth that had powered the company for half a century began to sputter. And as Empire faltered, their competitors pounced. For years, Empire had the shop-at-home model all to themselves. But now, everyone else saw the opportunity. Big box stores like Home Depot and Lowe's, which had massive purchasing power and established trust, began aggressively marketing their own installation services. They could often undercut Empire on price, and they offered the convenience of a physical store for customers who wanted to see and touch the product. Newer, more nimble companies, some born on the internet, offered transparent online pricing and scheduling, making Empire's sales visit model feel antiquated and opaque. The competition wasn't just copying Empire's jingle. They were improving on their entire business model for a new, digital-first generation. They learned from Empire's mistakes, focusing on customer reviews and online reputation management from day one. While this brutal business battle was being fought, something else was happening on a cultural level. The Empire jingle, that inescapable earworm, began to change its meaning. It was no longer just a clever mnemonic device, it was starting to feel dated. It was a relic from a different era, the age of landlines and broadcast television. For millennials and Gen Z, it wasn't their jingle. It was that goofy song from the old commercials their parents watched. It became less of a brand asset and more of a pop culture punchline. It was parodied on shows like The Simpsons and Family Guy. It was the subject of ironic memes. The nostalgia was still there, but it was coated in a thick layer of irony. The song that had once screamed reliability and convenience now just screamed the 1990s. The brand was becoming famous for being famous, its cultural footprint larger than its actual reputation for quality. Behind the scenes, the internal structure of the empire was also fracturing. In the early 2000s, the company was sold to private equity. This is a common story in American business. A founder-led company, built on a specific vision and passion, is sold to investors whose primary goal is not necessarily long-term brand health, but short-term financial return. The focus often shifts from customer satisfaction to maximizing profit margins. This can mean squeezing franchisees, cutting costs on materials, and further depersonalizing the customer service experience. The soul of the company, the original vision of making people's homes beautiful, was being replaced by the cold calculus of a balance sheet. The Empire man Lynn Hauldren had passed away in 2011, and while the animated character lived on, the gentle, trustworthy man who gave the brand its human face was gone forever. It was a perfect storm, a tarnished reputation from overexpansion, a new digital world that amplified every mistake, a catastrophic economic recession that gutted their market, smarter and more agile competitors, and a cultural shift that turned their greatest marketing tool into a nostalgic joke. The brand was still a household name. The jingle was still, impossibly, stuck in everyone's head. You could still see the Empire vans on the highway, but the foundation was rotting away. The company that had so perfectly captured the zeitgeist of the late 20th century was now struggling to find its footing in the 21st. The iconic jingle was like a ghost, a phantom echo of a power and a dominance that was rapidly fading. The Empire wasn't just on a ledge anymore. It was in a freefall, and no one knew where it was going to land. And that landing was brutal. In September 2009, Empire Today, the titan of television advertising, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. The company that had carpeted America was now on the brink of being rolled up and thrown out itself. The reasons were a perfect storm of economic disaster. The 2008 housing market crash was the primary killer. When people stopped buying homes, they stopped buying new floors. The very foundation of Empire's business model had cracked. Their aggressive, high-cost advertising strategy, once their greatest strength, became an anchor, dragging them down in a recession where every dollar counted. The world had changed. Customers were now going online, comparing prices on sites like Lumber Liquidators or heading to big box stores like Home Depot. The friendly Empire man on TV suddenly seemed like a relic from a more expensive, less efficient era. But here's where the story takes a fascinating turn. The business was failing, but the brand was not. The brand was, in fact, more powerful than ever. The jingle, that 8-note earworm, had achieved a level of cultural immortality that the company itself could no longer sustain. It had escaped the confines of a commercial and become a piece of American folklore. Comedians used it as a punchline. TV shows like The Office and Family Guy referenced it. It became a meme, a shared joke, a nostalgic artifact that instantly connected millions of people who had grown up with it. The jingle was no longer just selling carpet. It was a cultural shorthand for cheesy, low-budget, yet unforgettable advertising. It was a testament to the sheer brute force power of repetition. And the science behind it is deceptively simple. The melody is what's known as diatonic, using the basic notes of a major scale, making it incredibly easy for our brains to process and remember. It's the same principle that makes nursery rhymes stick. Combine that with the rhythm of the spoken phone number, and you have a piece of audio engineered for maximum recall. And what about the man himself? The face of the Empire, Lynn Hauldren. He was never the owner, never a corporate executive. He was an ad man, a copywriter at the agency who had stepped in to be a placeholder for an actor who didn't show up. He became an accidental icon. He was the antithesis of the slick, fast-talking salesman. He was calm, he was grandfatherly, he was trustworthy. He looked like he'd give you a fair deal because he seemed like a genuinely fair person. He continued to be the Empire man until he retired in the late 90s. But his image was so potent that the company kept using his likeness for years, eventually transitioning to an animated version to keep the friendly, trustworthy spirit alive. Hauldren lived a quiet life outside of his commercial fame, a humble figure who had become one of the most recognizable faces in the country. When he passed away in 2011 at the age of 89, the obituaries didn't just remember a veteran or a copywriter. They mourned the loss of the Empire Man, a comforting presence from a bygone era of television. The company, however, didn't die with him. Out of the ashes of bankruptcy, a new owner emerged. A private equity firm saw what everyone else knew. The business model was broken, but the brand name and the phone number were pure gold. They bought the company, streamlined its operations, and made a critical decision. They kept the jingle. They kept the phone number. They knew that abandoning the 1-800 Empire jingle would be like Coca-Cola abandoning its red and white logo. It was the single most valuable asset the company had. The new Empire today leaned into its legacy. They understood that decades of advertising had burrowed this brand so deep into the American psyche that it was practically a public utility. You might not need carpet today, but you knew exactly who to call when you did. The jingle wasn't just marketing anymore. It was infrastructure. So what was it? What truly made the 1-800 Empire commercial a US phenomenon? It was a perfect, almost accidental symphony of marketing genius. First, you had the jingle. A simple, unforgettable melody so relentlessly catchy it bordered on being a psychological weapon. It wasn't just heard. It was absorbed, tattooed onto the collective subconscious. Second, you had the man. Lynn Hauldren wasn't a slick actor. He was authentic. In a world of loud, obnoxious salesmen, he was a beacon of trust and reliability. He wasn't selling you something. He was offering a solution. Third, you had the model. The shop-at-home concept was revolutionary for its time. It eliminated a major pain point for consumers, bypassing the intimidating showroom and bringing the store directly to their living room, a convenience that perfectly matched the straightforward promise of the ads. And finally, you had the saturation. Empire didn't just air their commercial, they carpet-bombed the airwaves. They played it during late-night movies, daytime talk shows, and Saturday morning cartoons. They made it ubiquitous, inescapable. It wasn't just an ad you saw. It was part of the very fabric of watching television for over 30 years. The commercial wasn't a phenomenon because it was good. In fact, by most creative standards, it was objectively bad. It was low budget, the acting was wooden, and the production value was non-existent. But it succeeded because it understood a fundamental truth about advertising. You don't need to be liked, you just need to be remembered. An Empire made damn sure you remembered. It transcended its role as a mere advertisement to become a cultural artifact, a shared memory that binds generations. It's a testament to the idea that a simple tune and an honest face, repeated ad nauseum, can build an empire more lasting than any corporate balance sheet. The business itself may have faltered, fallen, and been reborn. But the jingle, that simple 8-note promise of new floors, achieved a kind of immortality. It's still out there, echoing in our minds, a permanent resident in the soundtrack of American life, proving that the most powerful empire isn't built on carpets and tile, but on memory itself.